Hello, and welcome to the Ended Up in Vegas podcast. I'm Nikki.
I'm Megan.
And today we have a real treat for you. I'm looking forward to this interview. On today's podcast, we have someone who has lived in Las Vegas for a very long time. She has a rich history here, and she is going to tell us about some of the really significant memories that she has that have a lot to do with local history in Las Vegas. Today's guest is Madeline Hinkell Vonderlinden. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Tell us how you ended up in Vegas.
It's a long story. I was born in 1942 in a Polish ghetto in Newark, New Jersey, so about as far away from Vegas as you can get. And we lived on the East Coast until I was about 12 years old. And my father in Massachusetts had contracted cancer. And in those days, all they did is cut the cancer out and tell you, go to a warmer climate or you won't last another year. So in October of 1954, my father bought a little trailer, loaded it up with everything he could put on that trailer, and me, very naively, thinking we were taking that to this new place he wanted to go in California, where some guy was building some entertainment thing in an orange grove. Walt Disney. My father was always entrepreneurial, and so he thought this would be the place to go, California, the Golden State. And so we had a giant Nash Rambler, and he filled that up with stuff too. And we drove in the middle of the night. Of course, we owed a lot of bills because he was in the hospital for 5 months. We left Springfield, Massachusetts, went to Scranton, Pennsylvania, where he proceeded to sell everything he could, including the trailer and the hitch, and that's what financed our move to California. So it was me, the oldest, and 2 brothers and a sister, and my mother and father. And we came across country, and of course, the last 2 nights we slept in the car. Mm-hmm. And when we came to Las Vegas, we literally ran out of money. And my father, I remember him, entrepreneur that he was, saying to my mom, "Frances, keep the kids busy. I'm going to go right in here." We were parked on the side door of the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas. He said, "I'm going to go in here and earn some money as a shill." And a shill is someone who the house gives money to, and then you go around to the tables and try to promote other people to gamble at your table. Mm-hmm. So he was in there all day. I don't know what in the heck she did with 4 kids, but tried to keep us busy. He came out and he said, "Frances, we're going to get a hotel room and we're going to eat tonight." And he says, "They want me to come back tomorrow. So I think if we stay here for a week, that we'll have enough money to go to that guy that's building that place in California." And sure enough, that's what happened. Every day he would go to work and come home. And about the 5th day, he said to my mother, "You know, this Las Vegas, it's really, from everybody I talk with, it's really growing. Mm-hmm. We might just stay here."
Yeah.
Wow. That's really,
really
something.
And so that's exactly what he did. He, through one of his friends he met at the Golden Nugget, he rented a house on Minor Street in Henderson. It's up behind the Mormon church, all the way up Water Street.
Okay.
In those days, there weren't even sidewalks in Henderson in 1954. And someone told me that they built Henderson to resemble from the air. During the war it was built, World War II. And someone told me once that it was built to resemble from the air orchard. Huh. That's why the streets were rounded and how they looked like an orchard. And they didn't put sidewalks in because it was supposed to be a temporary city of 10 years.
Right.
But they built those Henderson townsite homes with cedar. So that's why they've withstood the test of time. Huh. No bugs. And so we lived in that house on Minor Street, and he took all kinds of different jobs. And but a year later, 2 weeks before my 13th birthday, he died anyway. Oh. And not before they had one more baby who was 2 months old when he died. Oh. So my mom was stuck in Henderson with 5 kids, no prospects, and didn't have enough money to go back to Pennsylvania to her sisters. So she knew how to work it. She was a product of the Depression, and she took in laundry, she took in ironing, and she had me babysitting. She had the boys a paper route, and but we couldn't keep that house. And I should say that house on Minor Street. When we came here, of course we didn't know anybody, and my first friends were from the Mormon Church, and they would take me to seminary every morning, and I met so many people, and that was such a good grounding to start the venture of Henderson.
Yeah.
And I still retain 2 of those friends to this day, and so graduated high school and everything with them. So we could only stay in that house a couple months, and then we moved to the projects, Carver Park. And that's another story about Victory Village and Carver Park were built during the time when they were building Hoover Dam.
Okay.
And the Victory Village was for the Caucasians, and Carver Park was for the black or brown people. And that was before, still segregation.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So we moved to Carver Park for 3 months, and my mom, with the grace of some of her friends from the Mormon Church and some of her friends from the Catholic Church, they rented a house on 113 East Pacific Street. So it's right on the corner of Texas and Pacific, and it's still there.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And so we lived in that house for a while, and still doing all those entrepreneurial things and going to school and going to church, and my mom was real strict about that. And one night her ladies from the church said, "Frances, you need to go to bingo with us because you have those kids, those 5 kids, and all your washing and your babysitting and your ironing. You need to have a night out."
Yeah.
So they went to bingo, and I gathered the brothers and sisters and friends in the living room, and we prayed that our mother would win some money. And later my mom told me it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But she won $2,880.
Wow.
She came home. She bought the house next door for $6,000. She bought a 50 Buick, so we'd have transportation, and she bought food and shoes.
Wow.
With that money, and still had money left over. I don't know how she did it. And she put a down payment on that house. And so we were solid Hendersonians after that. And that house is still there, and we didn't sell it until after we moved her out of it, and when she was in her 80s, late 80s. And 111 East Pacific.
Oh my gosh.
And so you can drive by. They've completely redone it. Looks real nice. So because we were in Henderson, we were invested in it and the Vegas Valley. And in the 1950s, it was such a treat to live in Henderson. No one locked their doors. Mm-hmm. The keys, you could always find the car keys. They were on the sun visor or on the dashboard. And if one of our friends was having trouble at home, the door was open. They could come in and just cry on my mom's shoulder, mm-hmm. or vice versa with their mothers mm-hmm. and fathers. So we were just blessed in that being in Henderson in the 50s. And it was one of the fastest growing cities in the country at that time. Mm-hmm. I even did some research on that. I remember it growing, but I didn't remember it growing as fast as it did. And so I went to basic high school in Henderson, graduated in 1960. My claim to fame is I was a freshman when Harry Reid, our famous senator, was a senior. I remember he and his lovely wife, Landra, holding hands, walking in the hallways at basic high school. Mm-hmm. And how lucky were we that our American government teacher was a future governor of Nevada,
really?
Mike O'Callahan.
Okay.
Oh,
wow.
Loved him and babysat for he and his wife. And the 1950s were, it felt safe in Henderson, mm-hmm. very safe. And there was not a lot of shopping, so we would all pile on the bus and ride into Fremont Street. That's where Sears was and J.C. Penney's and all the shopping.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was a shopping day. Instead of going to the mall, it was going to Vegas and mm-hmm. going to shopping there. And it was a good time to be in Henderson and be growing up very supported by your friends and family. And basic high school was a real treat to they were very big on academics at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I think Basic had one of the first advanced, I'm not sure what they call it now, but they called it advanced studies. I think then I was in that group
Mm-hmm.
that they, in our senior year, we were already taking freshman college English and so forth.
Like
So
AP kind of stuff, right?
AP, that's it. The lake, I should mention that too. The lake was almost up to the road.
Really?
It was very high, and the lake was our entertainment. We drove down to the Vegas Wash, which was the closest place to go swimming, all the time. Load up the car, the 50 Buick, with as many people we could get, and we went to the lake. And then when I got older, we were always on the lake on boats and anything we could. The lake was like a big part of our growing up years in Henderson,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of dates at the lake, on the blankets and swimming at the lake at night, and just lots of fun at the lake. And I think that the people nowadays aren't as blessed as we were in Henderson's beginnings. And so in high school, I marched in the Desert Airs one year, in my junior year in high school. So that took us to Reno for the basketball championships, to El Dorado Days Parade on Fremont.
Yeah.
A lot of experiences. And in high school, we also had Girls Athletic Association. So we didn't have like a lot of money thrown at us for girls sports, but we had Girls Athletic Association.
Mm-hmm.
And even in high school, I remember when I was 17, my mother and I used to dress up and go to the Strip.
Uh-huh.
And the Strip was very safe in those days, and she would love to go to the buffet, and she had this huge purse, and would take all kinds of goodies home. to
With 5 kids, you need
with
to.
the 5 kids, right? But we saw a lot of lounge acts, and just her and I just had a really good time together, just all dressed up and going out on the Strip. And then after high school, I had a boyfriend who, we used to do the same thing. We'd dress up and we'd take our class rings and turn it over like a wedding ring. And he had an old, to be more, mature.
Yeah.
And he had a really old truck, so we'd park it way in the back of the lot at the Tropicana and walk through the whole hotel like we were coming from the rooms, And we saw Shecky Green. We saw just all kinds of lounge acts that were really fun, and gambled and drank. And I was 18, he was 19.
Wow.
So the magic of just what we've heard so far from Madeline, let me just explain to everyone who doesn't know the background, is when I met Madeline, she started telling me some of her history here in Vegas. And this is how the power of manifestation works, because I was like, I have a podcast. Will you come on it, please? So thank you for telling all of this. Is like it's just so rich in history and so interesting to learn about and hear from your point of view.
Well, especially for me, because I'm a transplant, and I know a lot of people who've been here a long time, but I don't have the same sort of, rich history here. So I love hearing that kind of stuff. How big was Henderson at the time that you were growing up? I mean, how many people?
I think that the first year we came here, Henderson had maybe 15,000 people, I think, in 1954, 1955, 15, 16,000.
That's incredible.
And Vegas wasn't too much bigger, I think like 30,000. And Henderson was, the police all knew you. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew you, so you couldn't get away with anything. And even, especially my brothers tried, they were typical boys. But after high school, I had my first job with Laporta Insurance right there on Water Street. The building still stands. And I used to go from my mother's house it's like a quarter of a mile, less than a quarter of a mile to work. And I had that job before I graduated high school and had it for a year and a half. And it was the Laportas were wonderful people. They were like my role models, because she was just, I babysat and cleaned her house, and I knew her really well. And then when the principal sent me down to interview with Mr. Laporta for the job, I thought he'd requested me. And he said, oh, no, there was 3 ladies that I was interviewing and 3 girls. And he says, I'm going to hire you, but you're the one that's going to have to tell my wife that you're not going to be able to babysit or clean her house anymore. He says, because he taught me ethics, is what Mr. Laporta taught me. And so that was interesting. So I worked there for a year and a half. And then one of my friends came to me and said, you know, they're hiring at the test site. They're having this big thing, peaceful uses for atomic energy, Project Plowshare. And you, instead of $33 a week, you could make $127 a week. And I said, wow, count me in. And so in November of 1961, I joined a carpool, Henderson to the Nevada test site. And in those days, it was a 2-lane highway called the Widowmaker, and with good reason.
Yeah.
And so me and my 2 girlfriends joined this carpool with 6 Teamsters. They were in the front, and the 3 girls looked out the back of the station wagon. That took some getting used to, driving backwards. 75 miles or whatever it was in those days. And so during that time, the next couple months, I was in 3 car wrecks.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And so I told my mother, I can't do this. I have to stay up there. I can't drive every day to the Nevada test site. And in those days, the Henderson had the titanium plants. I should have said something about that. The titanium metal plants during World War II were real big. They were producing all kinds of titanium for the war effort. Well, of course, after the war, they started slowing down, and they were like less and less employment. And so when they started hiring at the Nevada test site, a lot of people from Henderson took that long trip every day to go to work at the Nevada test site. And so the Peaceful Uses for Atomic Energy Project Plowshare, they were trying to direct the nuclear bomb to do tunnels or canals or something for peaceful uses. But the atomic bomb decided, anything you do, I'm just going straight up. So we saw many mushroom clouds during that time, and I worked in trailers out there at the Nevada test site. And so that's where I met my husband. He is from Boulder City. They moved there in 1951. There's another story for you. And he had gone to the Navy and come back, and the girls lived in these dormitories, and the guys lived in men's trailers, and he came in the dormitory for his date. Cute little blonde from California.
Oh, the date wasn't you.
Nope. Okay. I was busy ironing a shirt for this friend of mine who was having a job interview. And I looked at him, and oldest line in the world, you know, I think I know you. And sure enough, he was a big man on campus in Boulder City. Everybody knew him. And so I started talking to him, and he realized the boyfriend that I had in high school used to come over to Boulder City to drink beer with him and he and the other guys. And so the rest is history. We started dating. And
did he go on the date?
He went on the date with that girl, but decided that he wanted to come and this was so cute. The Nevada test site at that time had 10,000 people. And it was like a small city, just like Henderson. Everybody knew everybody. And the entertainment after work was the girls would put on their short shorts and go play tennis. And the guys would get a 6-pack of beer and a bottle of Jack Daniels
and go and follow.
Watch the girls, you know, and decide which one they were going to go out on a date with.
Sure.
So the Nevada test site was interesting at that time.
How many women were working at the test site when you were there?
Quite a few, because I don't know a specific number, but there were a lot of the office workers and technicians. They had a lot of technicians. One of my girlfriends worked with the dosimeters. Everybody had to wear this dosimeter to make sure you weren't exposed to too much radiation. And she worked in that office, and so there were a lot of women that worked out there at that time. And you know, we're talking about right after World War II, where the women were used to working, and a lot of women started their careers at the Nevada test site from the Vegas Valley.
Yeah.
And so a lot of training and, promotions. And so we got married in September of 1962, back to Henderson. Well, every weekend we would come back to Henderson and stay at my mother's house or our friend's house. And after we were married, and then we decided we were going to move to the Nevada test site. We had our name on the married people's housing. And my husband and I still argue about the size of that trailer. I say it was 10 by 18, and he says it was 10 by 25. But I don't know. It was pretty tiny.
Yeah.
And so for $35 a month, we lived there for a year.
Oh my gosh.
At the Nevada test site. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
So it was like, 1 week's pay,
It was, so he was making 136 and I was making 136. We were both the same level. And so we socked away some money.
Yeah.
And then we bought a trailer and lived in Indian Springs.
Okay.
But we still came to Henderson all the time because our I should mention our whole family was here. His mother and father were alive, my mom and stepdad, my brothers and sisters and his sisters. They were all in Las Vegas and Henderson, and Boulder City. And so now we're talking into the 60s. So Henderson's growing by this time and getting more houses and more people, and the titanium is still going. And then they started encouraging small businesses, which was the best thing, smartest thing Henderson ever did. They still have, low-profile small businesses. And so that time was a real growth period in Henderson in the 60s and on into the 70s. So my husband and I bought our first house in Las Vegas and had 2 sons. And in 1969, he decided he wanted to try a different place. And our family thought we were all crazy, leaving them, And so in 1969, we moved to Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Okay.
And then 1973, we moved to San Francisco area. In 1981, we moved to Korea.
Oh, wow.
And then we came back to LA area and San Francisco area and Washington State and Tennessee. And wouldn't you know it, when the Yucca Mountain job started, my husband has always been in the nuclear industry. They decided to send him out there as one of the principals on the Yucca Mountain job, which was not popular because it was nuclear waste repository. And there was a lot of misinformation about that. And after 2 years on that job, we were already in our house off of Green Valley Ranch, back to Henderson, and couldn't stay away. And he said to me, "Political football, time to retire."
Yeah.
And so we retired here. So it's like we came full circle from Henderson all over the world and back to Henderson. And but Henderson was always our base because our family stayed here. And so this was always our home. This is the Vegas Valley. Everything you do here, it's like this was always our home.
Yeah. Now, locals know, obviously, that Henderson just is, a one road across Las Vegas now. You don't really know the demarcation between the two anymore. But you're talking about a time where, Las Vegas was like going to the city, and Henderson was really far east in the River Mountain area where Basic High School is. That's really where downtown Henderson originated and then spread out from there.
Water Street, right?
Yeah. So tell us also, just to give people an idea, the test site is what, 50 miles?
65 from Las Vegas.
65 from Las Vegas. And then Yucca is what, 100 and...
So it's on the test site.
Okay.
So it's about 14 miles in from the main gate, I think. That's an interesting point you just brought up about now it all runs together.
Right.
But in those days, we had little cities between Henderson and Las Vegas. We had Pittman, Whitney, East Las Vegas, and then Las Vegas. And every one of those had their own little bar, their own little store, like a little bitty store, and their own little city.
Yeah. So it's confusing to people because those unincorporated areas still exist, but they all exist as part of unincorporated Clark County.
Right.
Some of them are in the Clark County proper.
Right.
But yeah, that's an interesting part of our real estate spread in Vegas.
Well, I think a lot of people that aren't from here don't know that the vast majority of Las Vegas is actually not in the city of Las Vegas.
Right,
and
correct.
So what was the way to Boulder Highway? Was that the way you
Boulder Highway.
got to and from?
It was like a 2 lanes, one,
Yeah.
back and forth, and then they made it 2 lanes on each side. Wow, we were really getting big then. Now look at the Boulder Highway, and then they built the freeway. So because there were so many more people even coming, and so but it was in those days. Boulder Highway was the drag race. All the guys tested their cars out, and the girls too, because we all like to drive fast. And in those days, the speed limit was safe and sane. Safe and sane. That's how Las Vegas. So that's what we grew up with, was safe and sane.
Yeah.
And so growing up in Las Vegas not only was a treat, and watching the city grow is like mind-boggling to those of us who were here when it was so small. And the changes that Las Vegas has had with the mafia was here for so many years, and then it changed to corporate America. It's just the big changes I think it reflects our country too, how Las Vegas has changed so much, and the whole valley has grown, and it's grown into a destination place, but it's also grown into a place to come and live and enjoy. And there's certainly enough to do around here.
Yeah. And you have a lot of nostalgic experiences from being in Vegas. Tell us about some of them.
Well, my biggest one, of course, was when I met Elvis. A lot of people don't know, but the first time Elvis came to Vegas was not 1969.
Okay.
The first time Elvis came to Vegas was April of, I think, 56.
Okay.
And I'm not a starstruck kind of person, but my girlfriends sure were. And I can even remember the first time I heard an Elvis Presley song. I was walking home from Basic High School, which is now the junior high school up on the hill.
Okay.
And I was walking past the barbershop, which was right behind what the old Rainbow Club, and right on that little street behind what they call it, the Pass now. That's where the movie theater, the drugstore, the little store, and the barbershop were all on this little street. And right at the top of it was the fire station. And I heard Heartbreak Hotel coming out of the doorway of the barbershop. And then I thought, maybe they've got something. That guy sounds good. So a month later or so, one of my girlfriend's sisters who drove borrowed the mom's car, and they were all hype. She was hyping us up. She was Elvis's biggest fan. And 8 of us piled in the car and went to the New Frontier Hotel, and it was packed. That room only held like 1,000 people. It was packed, girls all over, screaming, and and we got in because she knew somebody, and so we were in, and we watched the whole performance.
Wow!
And Colonel Parker, that was one of his proudest moments, but his least proudest moment was he tried to promote Elvis for 2 weeks to the adult crowd, and bombed. Just hardly anybody went. Where this Saturday afternoon matinee was explosive. So we went, and they said after the performance, the girl says she knows what room he's in. Yeah, she knows what. And in those days, no security.
Yeah,
the two-story hotel in the back of the New Frontier. So we walked past the swimming pool, and we went to the back, and I was just following along with these 10 girls, and it wasn't a big thing to me. I wasn't starstruck. Oh, not me. And so we get in there, and we start knocking on this door. Well, an obviously honeymooning couple, very upset with us.
Ooh.
All these girls knocking on the door. Well, I wasn't the door knocker. I was at the back of the crowd. I didn't care.
Sure.
And a door opened right behind my ear, right in back of me. And this voice said, "You little gals looking for somebody?" And of course it was Elvis, and they immediately mobbed me going around trying to get to Elvis. I'm going, You're pulling my clothes off. What's they're crazy girls? And Elvis reached his arm in up around my little waist at that time and pulled me next to him. And that was the moment I knew charisma and sexiness. He exuded it. He was just so kind and so nice in those days. Signed autographs for everybody. I was just like dumbfounded and didn't even hardly move. And that's my Elvis story. It was like he was only like 22 years old then.
Wow.
And so then when we went past the swimming pool again, he was out there with the big redheaded show lady. I can't remember her name. Tempest Storm maybe.
Okay.
And he was sitting out there having cocktails with her.
Wow.
And I said to myself, these girls are crazy. They think they're going to have a shot here. But anyway, Elvis was really a good story. And we met so many movie stars and so many performers in those days because they were so available.
Yeah.
And so that's how it just was in Vegas. You went to for a good time and you had a good time. It wasn't real expensive in those days either because the people that were in charge in those days believed that bring them in with the food and the entertainment and then they'll gamble.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly how it was. And so, so many people have so many stories about Las Vegas. And when we get together, the older crowd, and start talking and, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that.
Sure, yeah. The Frontier, that happened at the Frontier, you said?
The New Frontier.
Was that what is there now? Is that...
they imploded it, and what's there now? I can't think of what's there now. The big thing.
Is it the Wynn or no on the other side?
No, it's on the other side of the street. That the big
Resorts World.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Took over that whole area.
Yeah.
And it's hard. When we were going out drinking and dancing, we went to the top of the Desert Inn. Well, I think I looked up, and I think it was 5 stories high or something. It was like the top. It was the tallest building, and they had the windows and where you went dancing. And so Vegas is really a special treat. Even now, as an 80-year-old person, when I fly in and out of Vegas, I get excited. And when I come and then land in the airport, I still get excited.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
It's such a beautiful city to fly in and out of.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the Desert Inn, that's one of my nostalgic memories because I was there when they imploded it.
Oh.
I mean, it's not a happy memory, but it was really cool to watch. It was the first one that I was there for.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was for the Rush Hour 2.
Oh, the movie.
Yeah.
That's so funny. And now it's the Wynn.
Yeah, and now it's the Wynn.
Now it's the Wynn, right.
Yeah, you've seen all of these hotels imploded and turn over into something new, and it's
built in and then later imploded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite?
I like the Sands a lot and the Flamingo. They were, at that time, they were my favorite. Right now, the Bellagio is. I just love the Bellagio. I love to go in the side door and see the atrium and then go eat or sit in the lounge and have a lemon drop.
What are some of the places, and they don't have to be on the Strip, that are no longer in Las Vegas that you used to love to go to that you wish you could just go back?
Some of them are still around. The Ranch House Supper Club we used to go out to, but the places, well, when we first came to Vegas, they had the Old Frontier, which was very, very fun, like Western jails and, kind of a Western theme. That was, I kind of missed it was still there when I took my kids there. But that's gone. Gosh, there's so many places. Even in Henderson, they used to have so many little things in Henderson that were fun. And I just can't even think of one right off. I know the lake I wish the lake was like it was because that was beautiful. And so the lake, I would say, wish that was back with all the boating and so forth. That would be nice. And I don't know, Boulder City is still about the same. They've made it kind of a destination for little restaurants and little places. And we always used to go over there to the park, and the park is still there. And
that's such a hidden gem to me, Boulder City. Yeah. It's so cute and quaint.
A very hidden gem. And just the old neighborhoods have changed so much. We bought our first house here was up on Gypsy Street behind Arizona Charlie's. And it was such a cute little neighborhood, and it was the last houses built with wood floors. And so we had wood floors, and being from other places, both my husband and I love the wood floors because that's what we grew up with. And after that, they went to the slabs.
Concrete. That was probably what in the probably in the 60s they started going to.
That house was probably built in 59 or 60.
Yeah.
And after that, in the mid 60s, I think that became the norm in building. But I miss the downtown Fremont Street area, the shopping that we used to go to, and the just the little clubs and so forth, and little eateries on Fremont Street were so nice. And so just the difference of the town now. I miss how it used to be just everybody knew everybody, and now you have to work a little bit to meet your neighbors because everybody comes in the garage and closes it. And, thankfully, on our street, we all walk around and know each other. But I think when people that come from other places, that's one of the things they miss about Las Vegas and Henderson is sometimes they don't get to meet their neighbors as much. You have to really make an effort.
Yeah.
And so maybe some of them don't want to be met.
Yeah. I just had this conversation with a client that bought a place here year before last from Colorado, and he's, a single guy in his late 50s, and he's like, everybody said the same thing, come in the garage, close the garage door. He's like, but I've made some friends, and he's like, but nobody hangs out on the front porch. I was like, nope.
I miss that kind of life.
Yeah.
That's always a good thing. And I noticed some of the houses are being built with front porches, and I'm thinking, gosh, I hope they go and utilize those.
I actually have a house listed for sale. It's under contract right now, but it's in a really cute neighborhood where it's very European style, and a lot of people utilize their porches and will be out on Saturday and talk to each other. So I think that there are sweet little neighborhoods like that.
I think Inspirata is one that has that kind of sense of community where people know their neighbors. It's almost cult-like, for lack of a better word. Yeah. They love it. They're, from what I understand.
I think that's good.
I think we're starting to see that more and more as people, really plant roots here, and Vegas is growing as less transient than it was. I think
plant roots is the operating words there, because we certainly were blessed to grow up that way in Henderson. And just so many stories about I could tell you about it more, but.
So we met this guy at a convention, and he was saying, Vegas just doesn't have any soul. And
we're just like,
we literally looked at him like, this is the point of our podcast.
This is it. You're right, because we've also been blessed since we've been back. Well, right before we moved back to Henderson, our daughter, full disclosure, a realtor at Berkshire Hathaway, Erica Delk, and have to put her plug in.
Yeah, very good. Hi, Erica.
Hi, Erica. Her husband wanted to become a fireman, and they lived in Southern California, and he tried interviewing all over Southern California, Northern California, Nevada, and got hired in Henderson. And I said, great, you're going back to Henderson. Yeah. And so he's a career fireman with the city of Henderson, and they came back first, and then we came back, and then our granddaughter moved here, and our grandson moved here from Northern California. And so now we have, 4 of the grandchildren, 6 of the great-grandchildren, all the various relatives here. And then my brother never moved away, so he and his family and children and grandchildren are here. And my sister that lived in California for 20 years moved back 3 years ago to Henderson.
Yeah.
And because it's familiar,
right?
It's a familiar place. And so my other sister that lives in Texas is moving back next September, and we're all going to be back in Henderson. So, and it's just always been that the Vegas Valley has always been our home and a familiar place to us.
Yeah,
that's a really big blessing to have your family.
Very
to have
big.
So much family, because my family's not here, and so I think that's so neat to have the extended family too. That's how I grew up, with cousins and aunts and uncles. And, you know, it's one thing I miss the most.
Well, my brothers and sisters and I, when we were being raised, we were always away from the cousins because we were going all over the East Coast. My dad was always after chasing the dreams. And so when we started having children, we made a pact that we would keep the cousins together. And it was the buddy cousins. And so we raised them that way. And so they're still friends. And so it was a natural fit to come back to Vegas for our children, for our daughter. And then we have a son in Northern California and a son in Southern California. And so very close, you know, we can come in and out anytime to see each other. And so West Coast, I think of all the places we lived in the world, we probably would have retired in Knoxville, Tennessee if it hadn't have been for our family and the familiarity of the Vegas Valley.
Yeah.
And that's why we retired here.
You mentioned that you're going somewhere after our interview today, and I think it's an important mention on the show. Think of places like that and tell people where you're going in Las Vegas to eat lunch or dinner, or maybe go out on a Sunday to brunch.
Oh, well, today my husband and I are going to the Bootlegger. The Bootlegger is a very old Vegas spot. The Mafia, again, used to go there, and it used to be downtown, but then they moved out on Las Vegas Boulevard. Still the same people that started it, run it, very family-orientated. And so I have this lunch group with the ladies that are left over from my husband's former company and some other of our friends, and it's called the Gal Pals now instead of the Bechtel Spouses group. And the Gal Pals, since I was in charge of the luncheons, one year I did an Old Vegas luncheon, and I took them places like downtown on Fremont Street, down on some of the restaurants there that are still there, and to out to the Strip to a few that were there, and the Bootlegger was their most popular one. They love the Bootlegger, and so that there's so many places that are that you could call Old Vegas, like the ranch house that I mentioned earlier, way out on the other side of town. That used to be the place to go for anniversaries and birthdays and so forth. And on a Sunday we probably can be found after church down at the Dollar Loan Center at the little place in there, or we like to go out to the Strip for special brunches or special lunches for anniversaries or birthdays. And we have one grandson that every occasion he tries to push us to another new steakhouse. So we try all the new steakhouses. And for my 80th birthday, they took me to Hank's in the Green Valley.
We love Hank's.
And so on Sunday, though, a lot of times it's we get together at each other's houses. And especially during football season, we've been hosting a lot of football lunches and dinners. And so on Sunday, we get together with family a lot and do family things. And whatever's going on in the valley, we have my granddaughter-in-law. She's a great organizer, Samantha Delk. And she has us going here and there and everywhere. I mean, challenging us in our walking abilities and and going different places. And she's a great organizer. For Mother's Day, was it last year or the year before? She took us up to Mount Charleston, my daughter and I, for a picnic with the family. And so we love to go to Mount Charleston, too. And there's something they have called Pine Dining. If anybody ever gets a chance to go to that, Pine Dining, where the old lodge burnt down. They put up some tents, and they have these really nice Saturday afternoon, evening dinners. And then, again, they repeat it on Sunday. Oh, nice. Pine Dining.
Yeah,
interesting. Have you done that?
I haven't. It's a great place to go, though, because, you know, the lodge burned down, like you mentioned, a year or two ago.
Yeah.
More than that, I think, even.
Was it?
It was during the pandemic, I think. It was about a year or two ago.
So getting out there and supporting them is always a great idea.
Oh, yeah. And it's always fun to go up to Mount Charleston. And the restaurant up there is real nice too, where the hotel is, and so that would be one place. We like to go for rides on Sunday.
Okay.
And see, just out to Lake Las Vegas or out to Boulder City, or even over into Arizona or up to St. George. We like to go for rides around the valley.
We do that. That's one of the things my mom loves to do. So we'll go. A lot of times we'll just do the loop around like Red Rock.
That's so pretty. Or we went up to the hot springs past Pahrump out there, where they have a date farm. We did that a couple of years ago, and that was really nice. There's a lot of things to do around here.
Yeah, there really is. And I think that's why initially when we started asking people the question of what you're doing on a Sunday, people said, oh, I feel like people are going to say the same. One of our guests said, I think people are going to say all the same thing. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I feel like everyone's answer has been really unique.
Yeah. And especially if you have family here, you're always planning family outings and things to do with kids and so forth. And that's always fun too.
Yeah. Going back to the Bootlegger, I basically grew up in the Bootlegger. It was right down the street from my house. Yeah. I grew up on Eastern between Deserton and Tropicana.
So you know the old location.
Oh, I know that old location very well. Yeah. And I remember the red velvet wingback chairs were
Still
huge. Yep. Still have them. And it's like have you been?
Oh, yeah.
So for those who don't know the Bootlegger, it is just like this beautiful, dimly lit, classic Italian, like very rich colors, very
old
moody.
Vegas.
Yes, very old Vegas. I legitimately could tell you exactly what they put on their house salad and all the details of,
good.
how everything looked, the chandeliers, and just it's so nostalgic, and it's great that we still have it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Family. I took some friends from out of town in there once, and the lady that owns it, she's very old now. I think she's still alive. She was sitting at the bar.
Yeah.
And it was, they couldn't believe the rich history, and I had to walk them around and look at all the photos and everything.
And the owner was our lieutenant governor for a while, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I
Lorraine
forgot
Hunt.
about that. Lorraine Hunt. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah. It's all intermixed here. We intermix a lot.
That's another thing about growing up in Henderson. My boss, Lula Porta, ran for county commissioner. Well, when anybody runs for anything, all the other politicians come in, and I'm thinking it was Senator Cannon at the time that came in and was stumping for him. And as a young person going door to door for a political candidate for an 18-year-old, that was... I don't know how many do it nowadays, but that was a treat, meeting people and knocking on their door and talking about your candidate.
That's neat.
So we could do things like that very safely in those days. And I think I encourage all young people to get involved with their city and with what's going on in their city.
Yeah, tell us some of the things. I met Madeline at Pilates, and you're very active. Tell us some of the things that you're doing now in this season of life.
Well, I've always tried to stay active, and even raising children and grandchildren, tried to stay very active with whatever was going on. And when I was younger, I played tennis and jogged, and my left knee will tell you all about that. As you get older, all those old football injuries come on for people. But I started Pilates about 5 years ago. And smartest thing I ever did, I stopped for about 5 months thinking, I'll rest my knee. No, you don't stop.
Yeah.
It's something that's really good as you age for your stretching and your mobility. And as you get older, you do need a lot of stretching. So I go to Pilates. I'm active with my great-grandchildren, and I walk my dogs just about every day. They two little stinkers, they have two French bulldogs that are, think they're pit bulls, and you have to keep them under control walking, so I get upper body too with those dogs. And we just have an active family.
Yeah.
We're very blessed with an active family, and always thinking of something to do. We went for one birthday axe throwing. I mean, there's another thing you can add to your list of things to do on a Sunday in Vegas, axe throwing. And I didn't do so good, but it was fun. And so I like to just stay active. I'm active around the house and the yard, and just I think if you sit you turn to cement.
Yeah.
Mentally and physically. Sure. Mm-hmm. So you just have to, I try to stay up with my old friends and have coffee with, my past friends, and just in general enjoy life. And my father, mentioned that he was an entrepreneur, jack of all trades, expert of none, my mom used to say. But the one thing he gave me was a sense of adventure, and he never said no to adventure. And so I rarely say no if somebody says something. Mm-hmm. And let's try this, let's try that, all my life. Yeah. And then my mother always said, show up.
Yeah.
Show up, hold your head up, show up, and be on time.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed working out next to you yesterday. I think truly. I feel like when you're next to someone in any kind of movement activity, you can feel their energy and you can feel their spirit. And it's so inspiring to hear your story and your wisdom and all of the experiences that you have had, and surely all the things that you've been able to learn from that. So thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
Oh, thank you. We didn't even get into going to Korea for 3 years. We could do a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, ended up in Korea for their podcast.
Ending up in Korea.
Yeah.
A lot of Koreans in the Vegas Valley.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the other thing I like about the Vegas Valley. It's a mixture of many cultures and religions, and just a mixture. You can go to the store and just start a conversation with a lot of people. Oh, I've been there,
Yeah, and you mentioned the LDS religion as something being part of your youth, and that is something that, basically started, missionary work started the Valley.
That's true, coming through the trail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even though I'm born and raised Catholic and still Catholic, my friends really taught me a lot about their religion, and so I grew up learning from 12 years old on.
Yeah.
And even when we lived in Idaho Falls, I used to take my kids to the Mormon, the little kids. I can't remember the name of it, but. And I went to the seminary in the morning.
Yeah,
so
primary was it?
Primary.
Yeah.
Primary, that's it. Mm-hmm. Primary and seminary. But, the Mormon influence is a big one in the Vegas Valley.
Yeah.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, and it's a positive influence, which any place that's grown as fast as the Vegas Valley and Henderson, you need a positive influence. And I'm always happy to meet people that have a positive energy and have a few morals and scruples and raise families and go to church or do what they want to do for their their good family life. I like all that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's just a testament, to go back to the gentleman that we met at the convention. Mm-hmm. There is quite a bit of soul here in Las Vegas. There's a lot of history. I think of Vegas is almost like there's, not two different cities, but there's the Strip and then there's the community. And the community is really rich in history and started small and has grown. And there is some transience to it, but it's not, if you only go to the Strip, you're going to have a very skewed perspective about what Las Vegas is, I think.
There's another place that when we were young that my husband and I used to love to listen to jazz. We'd go over to the Moulin Rouge. Mm-hmm. And so that whole culture and everything on the, we called it the west side of town, we enjoyed that so much. And my husband hired the first black female secretary at the Nevada test site.
I love that.
And so like I told you about our family, is the international family here in United Nations of families, but I don't know, Vegas has a rich history of all its cultures, the Hispanic cultures here, and going back to the ranchos even. And so, it's not only grown too fast, but it's still, some of the roots are still retained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we may not have basilicas and coliseums, but we can do replicas and soul really well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, thank you so much for being here again.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
We really enjoyed talking to you and hearing about your story.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Yeah, it was a real treat to get to know you and to hear some of the stuff about Las Vegas, stuff I didn't even know. That was really fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Ended Up in Vegas podcast. We'll see you next time.